Let's rank every character in Jujutsu Kaisen from worst to best, focusing mostly on their impact on the story, their development as a character, and their design as a whole. We'll be going all the way back from chapter 1 to the current reigning chapter to make sure every single person, curse spirit, and NPC from JJK is covered. Make sure you hit that like button and tell me how wrong I am down in the comments. We'll start with the very first character, who's, if I'm gonna mispronounce this guy's name, Weisuke. This is Yuji's grandpa, one of the most important characters in the story without being an important character whatsoever. He showed up in one chapter, and that's literally all he's ever taken part in, and then he died in the first couple pages of that chapter. He's an old man who apparently had a lot of friends back in the day that either died before him or he lost because of dumb, stupid feuds, and ended up dying with the only person being around him, his grandson. Obviously, we know that there's more to Weisuke's story in the background. Yuji and his dad and Yuji's mom being Kenjaku. There's a lot in that family history. Weisuke did not trust Kenjaku for as far as he could throw her, and that's pretty reasonable. It's unknown if Yuji's parents actually died and then Kenjaku moved on, or if Weisuke like abducted Yuji and like kidnapped him and saved him. There's multiple different ways that could be interpreted, but W grandpa, I mean, I can really only give him a B. Up next, we have Curse Womb. Curse Womb isn't really much of a character. The finger bearer, they have a finger of Sukuna, so they do have some kind of power. When they first show up in the detention center, pretty iconic, I won't lie to you. I remember watching that for the first time in the anime, and I was like, holy crap. This guy just cut off Yuji's arm, instantly appeared between them, and is already causing issues. He killed Megami's divine dog. He had a lot of aura. And then obviously Sukuna takes all of that aura away and makes him look like a fucking loser. Megami fights a second finger bearer and is basically just domain fodder. So while I wouldn't say Curse Womb is trash, that's just NPC tier. Up next, we have Ichichi, obvious S tier. No, but I think Ichichi goes right next to Weisuke Itadori as a B tier. I think that's pretty clear. I think Ichichi, all memes aside, Ichichi is an awesome character. I think he's just, you know, silly hee hee ha ha. He fits the role that he's given. He's the auxiliary manager. He's scared of disappointing and making Gojo upset. He just looks out for everybody. I would give him S tier in memes all day, every day. But when we're talking real shit, I'm just going to give Ichichi a B tier. Up next, we've got Mai Zenin. And let's be completely honest. Let's just call a spade a spade. Mai Zenin is going to be our first trash, forgettable character. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, you know, the sad, the feels, the sorrow that she was forced to be a sorcerer when no one else was able, like she didn't want to be a sorcerer. Oh, she's Maki. If Mai was not Maki's sister, there would be nothing. Mai suffers from the same issue that Kamo Noritoshi suffers from. Gege realizing he gave way too cool of an ability to a character that is not going to use it correctly. And that's just being completely honest. She exists in the exchange event as a hurdle for Maki to overcome. And she exists in the perfect preparation arc as a hurdle for Maki to overcome so Maki can become a better character. Mai is Maki. They are one and the same. Up next is Momo Nishimiya. Momo Nishimiya is clean as day, NPC ass character. Momo is just the girl with the broom. The only reason I would not give Momo trash is because she stood her ground and is in the current battle against Sukuna. She's got to get props for that. You know a character that I don't like? Miwa Kasumi. Trash, forgettable. She can go right next to Mai. Miwa is so trash that she made a binding vow to make herself as strong as possible with the cost of never swinging a sword and basically never being relevant ever again. Not that Miwa was quite relevant to begin with. And it fucking broke against Kenjaku's bare hand. She was about to get pieced up by maximum Uzumaki. Miwa has not done anything the entire series, and I don't know what she has done to garner the amount of respect that she has. Up next, we've got Mechamaru, who is a very high A. Mahito vs. Mechamaru is such a peak fiction fight. The entire writing of Mechamaru that goes into heavenly restriction that forces him to have a body that he can't, leave that bathtub in, but he has such strong cursed energy that he would literally choose to not be a sorcerer just to have a normal body and just to be a normal person. And he develops this awful personality when all in all, he could have had everything he ever wanted and more if he just stopped fighting against the life that he was born with and just accepted it. Which is easier said than done. He was born with an entirely crippled body with no hope of ever getting out of it, forced into a world of Jujutsu sorcery that he didn't even want to be a part of and would rather not be a part of it. Even with all the power that he gained, nothing would be able to give him the body that he wanted to have friends and live a normal teenage life, or just date the girl that he loved. I will say, one of the more beautifully written deaths in the entire story. I think Evening Festival hits home very hard. Mechamaru is a traitor-ass bitch, but his story is a great one. Kamo Noritoshi, absolute, the epitome of a C-tier character. Just fumbles the bag, can never strike a hard moment for his life. I think the coolest thing he's ever done is when he was fighting Cursed Naoya and almost sacrificing his life to fight Cursed Naoya. Other than that, Kamo Noritoshi has been a bum every other part of the series. He immediately gets replaced as the poster of blood manipulation because Choso and the other death paintings do blood manipulation so much cooler than he does. And ultimately, my biggest theory is that Gege thought Noritoshi Kamo was such a lame character that he said, fuck it, I'm gonna rename my villain after you because I think that's a cool name and I want to have someone cool use it. Up next, we've got Arata Nita. Forgettable. He's literally around for 2 seconds to show up, make Nobara's status of being alive or dead super questionable, and then dip. Junpei Yoshino. Junpei's a B tier character for me. So many people I've noticed as time has moved on not liking Junpei. I'm genuinely surprised by that. Gege himself wasn't a fan of Junpei's entire arc and everything. He wishes that he could have done it better, which is crazy to me because Junpei's arc is what got me into the story. But seeing Mahito's dynamic with Junpei and then Junpei's dynamic with Yuji, and then seeing how much potential Junpei had to be a reoccurring character, Gege just gave up on and had Mahito kill Junpei, that was wild. My jaw hit the floor, and that's when I was like, yeah, Gege is doing something different with this anime. I'm gonna stick with this. Moving on to Principal Yaga. Principal Yaga could have been a much better character if we had a little bit more time to get to know Principal Yaga. Like, Principal Yaga is only in a couple scenes. He's Gojo's mentor, which is great. He has a great relationship with Gojo. I do enjoy his design, and I think his puppet manipulation is awesome, especially when you consider the fact that not only did he create Panda, but he has the potential to be an unregistered special grade because he's literally able to just create an army of self-sustaining cursed corpses with his whole 3-spirit theory. Which I hope comes back to some shape or form in the story. It's way too important. But like, Yaga's death is a little underwhelming. He's just not in the story enough for me to give him a B tier like Weisuke, Ichichi, or Junpei. Nanami Kento. I gotta give the man an S tier. Nanami is like a perfect character. Like, one of the best characters that Gege has ever honestly written. Nanami, especially his adult personality and just character type in general, is so relatable. The whole, I'll never forget, like, when you go to the store and you find out your favorite type of bread is sold out, that's being an adult, or you wake up and there's more hairs on your pillow that are falling out. Like, that's the 7-3 curse technique is such a really cool curse technique. Let's not deny it. Just being able to hit canonical critical hits is crazy. And the way that he mentors Yuji and becomes just a huge guiding light for the main character. He fights through the Shibuya incident as one of the strongest, most durable characters that fights through as much chaos and nonsense as he can. Out of everything, his death scene is absolutely beautiful. He dies perfectly. He wasn't kept around longer than he needed to be. Nanami Kento is, for real, a great character. Up next is Utahime. Utahime isn't really trash. Utahime isn't really forgettable. I mean, besides hitting the Millie Rock for Gojo so he can hit 200% hollow purple, that's really all Utahime's ever done. She's an L mentor. The Kyoto students are some of the most bum-ass trash students ever. That school is fucked if anyone was ever hit that school solo. Now, a real woman, we got Mei Mei over here. And I know I'm gonna catch flack for this, but I'm putting Mei Mei all the way up in A tier. I love Mei Mei as a character. I think Mei Mei fits the role and just does everything that she's meant to do so well. The money grubbing, personal interest only, selfish mercenary who doesn't even reveal her real name and is basically manipulated her brother into feeling that he himself is a product that can be used at her disposal. She steals the show every time she's on stage. I mean, Mei Mei, the way that she dips out of Tokyo, or I'm sorry, she dips out of Shibuya, no qualms or worries whatsoever about all the people she's leaving, and then sells all of her Japanese stock and trades and foreign exchanges her yen to a different currency. Up next is Gaku Kanji, and fuck Gaku Kanji. Trash, forgettable, lame ass bitch. When this man pulled the guitar out, I was like, yo, my man is about to pop off. Show these motherfuckers, show Coat Rack Man how the old generation does it. And you're telling me my man stalemated fucking Juzo Coat Rack Man with the axe, with his guitar that shoots cursed energy blasts and waves? How did you become a higher up? How did you become a principal of the goddamn school, Gaku Kanji? Up next, Kusakabe. I think Kusakabe being the one sorcerer, the one grade 1 who is like, I'm going to avoid danger at all costs. This is how I survive. I'm a grade 1 sorcerer because I'm smart and I have utility and I stay out of trouble, not because I'm a badass warrior who faces every single threat that comes my way. I think that's an interesting personality trait. Doesn't hit home for me. Kusakabe, I won't lie to you, was never my goat up until he fought Sukuna in Shinjuku. Once Kusakabe fought Sukuna in Shinjuku, he popped off with his expanded simple domain, stepped up to Sukuna, started throwing hands with Sukuna. That was pretty cool in my eyes. That was a pretty cool moment. I gotta give it to him there. We have Akari Nita up next. I mean, NPC. I don't want to say anything too bad about him. They got their ass stabbed by Haruta in Shibuya incident and they were able to recover apparently. I think she quit after Shibuya or something like that. I don't necessarily hate her enough to put her in trash forgettable, but she don't really do shit. Takeda, another NPC that don't really do anything. Not forgettable, not trash. It's Toto's idol, right next to Toto in the tier list, so it's a perfect segue into the man, the myth, the legend himself. Toto is indeed S tier. Every time Toto is on screen, he is the star of the moment. Every time he shows up, you know some shit's about to go down. You are going to be laughing. You are going to be crying. You are going to be on the edge of your seat. You are going to be locked the fuck in and engaged because Toto is on screen. From day one, from when he beats the shit out of Megami to when he fights Yuji and becomes Yuji's brother, which was just one of the craziest developments of all time, which was captured perfectly in the anime. Just super funny, makes you love Toto as a comic relief character, but he's also very strong. And you see that in the Shibuya incident when he helps Yuji fight Mahito, a very strong special grade curse spirit that could be one touch and done. And Toto fights pretty valiantly against Mahito. Up to the point where he is willing to lose his curse technique potentially against him to bring Yuji to victory. And then after everything, Toto improves himself with the Vibra Slap instrument with a binding vow, and then jumps into a fight with the king of fucking curses to 2v1 with Yuji against him, and just becomes this sub-relativistic fucking monster. Up next, we have another S tier character without a doubt. Mahito is one of my favorite characters of all time. Mahito is such a great, well-written villain. It's honestly really hard to top him. Mahito is the perfect foil to Yuji. He's the perfect curse spirit and knows every possible way to make Yuji fucking hate him. Slowly breaks down Yuji's soul so often to the point where it's so easy to hate Mahito that by the end of the fight, final round 2 of Yuji versus Mahito, when Yuji is chasing Mahito through the snow and Mahito is sniveling and crying and farting like a little freaking loser, it's the most satisfying thing that could have ever been drawn. And it's disgusting, frankly, that Gege wrote Kenjaku to steal Mahito well-deserved kill from Yuji. Because, oh my god, I am you is one of the greatest speeches of all time. Mahito's actions in the Shibuya incident, especially when he fights Yuji in round 2, if you've been around for a long time in the community, you know without fail that is one of my favorite fights, if not my favorite fight of all time in Jujutsu Kaisen. And the anime just put a cherry on top with it. Mahito's voice acting is one of the greatest voice acting of all time. They really capture that menacing, nightmare fuel just attitude. Mahito's monologue of "this is war, who gives a shit about truth or who's right, the winner decides who's right in the end." Yeah, Mahito is one of the greatest villains in a long time. Up next is Jogo. I love Jogo. Jogo is the perfect fucking jobber character, and he doesn't get enough credit because he fights the 2 strongest characters in the entire series. He fights Gojo Satoru, the honored one, survives his unlimited void. Of course, you know, people will say that Gojo wanted him to survive so we could get information out of him, which is true, but it's still a crazy feat. He also fights 15 Finger Sukuna. He is, in my opinion, the strongest disaster curse. The man can summon a meteor. He only wanted curse spirits to replace humans, and was willing to die for what he believed. He mourned the loss of his friends. I think Jogo's an A tier curse spirit for sure. Up next, we've got Hanami. Hanami's kind of lackluster. I've got to put Hanami in C tier because they represent nature. They're not even really a cursed spirit. They're more just a malevolent spirit, just a regular naturalized spirit that has sided with curses because they feel that humans are destroying the environment, which they are. And Hanami feels like if humans are replaced by curses, the environment will flourish. Reasonable idea for a cursed spirit. Then Hanami doesn't really do much. Hanami's a fun fight against Yuji and Todo. A fun obstacle for them to uncover. Gege even says it himself that he wishes that Hanami just died with the hollow purple, because Hanami does nothing the rest of the series just to get taken out by Gojo later because they fumble the ball and release their domain amplification too soon than when they were supposed to. So Hanami's cool, and that goes into my next ranking for Dagon, who I think is a B tier disaster curse spirit. I think I would definitely put Dagon above Hanami as far as like how much I liked them as a villain and how much as a character I think they made more sense. Dagon as a curse spirit starts off as a curse womb with the beach domain expansion that everyone chills in. I think Dagon's fight is a lot cooler personally than Hanami's fight against Yuji and Todo. Like, Hanami's fight against Yuji and Todo is great, but like I don't really find myself going back to read or watch that fight. Whereas the Dagon fight, that's always a fun read through. Seeing Nanami, Maki, Naobito struggle in Dagon's domain expansion. Death Swarm is such a really cool curse technique. The way that Dagon fights inside of it's cool. Megami shows up. Dagon is a really fun moment in the Shibuya incident. And of course, they get absolutely bodied by Toji, which is maybe a good thing for their character, not really a bad thing because it just levels them up even more. But yeah, no, I think Dagon's a B tier. Up next, we have the death paintings. We've got Kachizu Eso and Choso, and I can kind of explain them all in one because their characters kind of all tie in together, right? Of course, they are the 3 death paintings that are able to actually take form amongst the 10 death paintings that Kenjaku created. They were created by Kenjaku impregnating a woman with a cursed spirit and creating a hybrid cursed spirit human person in the Kamo clan. Of course, the fetuses are the cursed wombs. They can be given to people and as used as vessels to house the cursed spirit. They all have blood manipulation techniques, and as you go from Kechizu to Esu to Choso, those blood manipulation techniques get stronger. When it comes to the verdict of Kechizu and Esu, I think they both serve their purpose. C-tier characters at most. Up next is Choso. I think Choso goes in A. Older brother Choso is always there for Yuji. He cries for Yuji when Yuji is leaving him. Choso has awesome fights with Kenjaku. Let's to not forget, we just talked about the masterpiece of a fight that is Yuji versus Choso. Choso has become the new poster child of blood manipulation and dethroned Kamo Noritoshi because Choso can just use unlimited blood. Choso's top tier blood manipulator. Again, the brother dynamic is insane. I think Choso's great, especially unfortunately with the fact that we did just lose him to Sakuna's Fuga, which is sad. The fire arrow absolutely decimated Choso, but it's not sad because Choso gave up his life to protect and save Yuji, which is honestly the greatest ending to Choso we could have ever asked for, right? At this point, I know I've even seen people in chat say that Choso's not really done anything. I mean, Choso, I think, was did a great job fighting against Kenjaku in the Tomb of the Star when Choso actually made Kenjaku use his gravity technique. I thought that was pretty dope. Choso's power-up he gets in the Tomb of the Star by using all of his brother's techniques. And again, like I said, his self-sacrifice at the end to save Yuji. I think Choso ends up being a great, well-written character that's really meant as a stepping stone for Yuji's development, acts as a great character in his own right and as a great elder brother. I think his fight against Naoya is really cool too, but yeah, I like that they added an anime only scene of Choso and Kenjaku duking it out in the anime. Up next, we've got Orame. I think Orame fits in B tier, and the reason for that is because Orame doesn't really have so much of a character, more as they're just known as the Sakuna Glazer, awesome ice manipulator. They took out half a dozen sorcerers in Shibuya with one attack, incapacitated fully awakened Maki Zenin with a maximum output ice attack, and has been stalemating Hikari for like 20 something chapters now. Up next, we've got Toge Inumaki. I'll be honest with you guys, I can't give Inumaki any higher than a C. I hesitate to put Inumaki in NPC tier. Curse speech is such a versatile and well thought out curse technique. The fact that Inumaki has to talk in ingredients, such an interesting character trait. The way that Inumaki can actually affect top tier people with curse speech is awesome. Imagine if Inumaki was developed at all. Imagine if the Inumaki clan was more than just a data book entry and we actually investigated the Inumaki clan to a small degree and learned more about them, learned about Inumaki's home life, learned about his clan life, learned about who he was. Even if we had like a small 3-4 mini arc about the Inumaki clan and helping Inumaki with like a family problem, just an underutilized character. If curse speech wasn't cool, Inumaki would be trash. Sumiki, I think we all know where to put Sumiki. Trash, forgettable. Sumiki, you're Megami's sister. That's literally it. You're a plot device. That's it. I don't have an issue with that. I didn't really need to know much about Sumiki. I didn't really need to see more than a chapter or two of Sumiki interacting with Megami, but the truth is we got even less than that, which is what makes it so much worse. Up next, we've got Ozawa. Forgettable. It's like that is a chapter that is just such a filler chapter. Ozawa is the character that shows up in chapter 64 or the episode of It's Like That. It is the tall girl that likes Yuji from Yuji's old middle school that after Yuji transfers, Nobara meets and wants to set Yuji up with. Don't ever get together. The Shibuya incident happens and Yuji's never going to be the same again because he's now basically a war veteran with PTSD. Was literally forced into the story by Gege's author because the editor by Gege's editor because the editor wanted a story where a girl liked Itadori Yuji. Up next, we've got Juzo Coat Rack Man. Trash. forgettable. He's not forgettable because Coat Rack is a funny meme, but he is most certainly trash. Up next, we have Miguel. The worst part about Miguel is Miguel had potential. Miguel could have been a B tier character, and then he pulled the BS in Shinjuku. He dipped out. Miguel showed up, did his little one dance on Sukuna's dismantles, and then dipped out once LaRue got bodied. Come on, bro. What did you even get brought in for? Miguel gets C tier because he checks Gojo's racism. He fights with Gojo in Volume 0 for a pretty decent amount of time. Up next, we've got Haruta, trash, forgettable. I might give him NPC. Honestly, yeah, we'll give Haruta NPC. Even though he's an annoyance, even though he's so annoying, his curse technique is cool, the miracle technique is cool, and he does have one really cool line that hits for me. Why am I doing this? Why am I being evil? Well, what am I supposed to do? The best way I can describe myself is a person who was born, is a person who likes soccer, who was born in a world without soccer. Well, sheesh, I feel that, bro. I don't know why, but I feel that. That makes sense. Now, these characters deserve to be trash forgettable. Okay, Mimiko and Nanako, trash forgettable characters. Sure, you can feel bad for them. You know, they were characters that were left out in the country and were, you know, imprisoned and treated like shit by, you know, rural area people because they had sorcerer powers, and those rural people were scared of this sorcerer powers. Sad story. Ultimately amounts to absolutely nothing, though. It amounts to what? A cell phone curse technique and one that hangs you? Lame. Up next, we have LaRue. Now, C tier is not a bad thing for LaRue, because to be honest with you, LaRue would be NPC trash tier if it wasn't for the fact that LaRue pulled some crazy shit and stun locked Sukuna long enough for Yuji to land one of the deadliest black flashes. Up next is going to be Geto Suguru. In my honest opinion, Geto is an A tier character. I think Geto does everything he needs to do right. I know I've said that for a lot of characters, but it's true. Gege kind of writes a lot of these characters to fill certain roles, right? To play certain parts in his story. Once their roles are done, that's it. But their impact can still be felt. Geto Suguru's impact on the Jujutsu Kaisen story can still be felt to this day. That's why people still talk about him. More than just, of course, that Kenjaku's using Geto's body. When Geto was alive, Geto was a very awesome villain. The idea of Geto in Volume 0 really holds up pretty decently, and suffers honestly from the fact that Volume 0 is only a one-shot and is separate from the main Jujutsu Kaisen story, because Geto in Volume 0, his grandiose, you know, story ideas that Gege wanted to do for years, he wrote in an interview. Geto's whole racism arc, his whole non-sorcerers, where he wants to uplift sorcerers because that's the one way that they can stop cursed spirits from existing. That's his answer to everything. Geto is a very believable, a very real character. His downfall is sad in Hidden Inventory when you get all of the additional context to why he became the way that he did. He's a very strong villain. He's got balls. He's willing to kill his own parents and torch an entire village to the ground as soon as he makes his decision. Now, Rika. Rika is kind of an NPC. Rika is not even really a character. Rika, before we even meet her, dies an accidental death in a car crash, and from that point on, she's an accessory to Yuta's character, right? Like, Rika is not even really a character. She's a symbolism of Yuta's guilt. It's his twisted form of love. Despite being the queen of all curses, Yuta pretty much carries all of Rika's aura in himself. Rika's a cool design. The curse spirit design is insane, but no more than really a very low IQ, mindless berserker JoJo stan. Up next, we have Yuta Okotsu. Yuta was the start of everything. Yuta was the start of Volume 0, the one shot that even started Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. His story in Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0 is great. The whole story of Volume 0 is great. Yuta finding friends, growing because of his friends, and becoming who he is because of the people around him. Which is why I think it's so beautiful that Yuta Okotsu's curse technique is copied. Because have you ever really heard the saying of, I don't have my own personality, I'm an amalgamation of all of the people around me? I feel like that's the perfect representation of Yuta, right? Like, Yuta has this innate blessing, this innate power, he was born special, all of this. but he doesn't really have much to himself. Like I said, he's very introverted. He was bullied when he was a child. Rika was really the only friend he ever had. Even his family doesn't like him because Rika is an evil curse spirit now and they don't treat him well. And then when he meets friends in Jujutsu High, they show him who to be. They show him who he is as a person. And when he's fighting Geto for the very last time in Volume 0, comes out into fruition where he's like, my friends are the only thing that matter to me. And I don't care what they feel, what Jujutsu High feels. I don't care if you're even right and you're the one and you're the good guy right now. I'm going to protect my friends and kill you because my friends mean the most to me. Yuta goes right next to Geto, if not higher than Geto, as an A tier character. We've got Shoko, NPC. Shoko, while she's a great character, she's definitely an asset. She's really not more help than Utahime. I mean, Shoko's our great reverse curse technique doctor. She heals everybody. She just performed the crazy brain surgery required, which, you know, definitely needed a lot of fortitude. Geto showed up when he was an outlaw, and Shoko immediately called Gojo to pull up on him. Up next, we've got Hebura. He does get NPC, best boy from Hidden Inventory. Just wanted, he was too good for the world, too pure, too innocent, and Gege had to remove him. Hebura does still show up from time to time. He shows up during Nanami's death to guide Nanami toward the future. He shows up during Gojo's death. Up next is Riko. Gotta give Riko a B tier. I think Riko is a fun character. Her impact, her themes, they mean a lot. The idea of a character who was born to be a vessel for Tengen and has lived their entire life knowing they were going to be a vessel to Tengen really doesn't give you much room to exist happily, right? Knowing that your days are numbered. I mean, all of us know that our days are numbered, but we have the, I don't want to say the satisfaction, we have the luxury of not knowing when that final day is going to be. If you knew when your final day was going to be, you'd start acting different. It's fucked up what Tengen does to the Star Plasma vessels, without a doubt. Awesome that Geto and Gojo were willing to go against that and go against all of the Jujutsu world to save Riko. And the impact of Riko's death, one of the heaviest burdens to hold. I knew that death was coming up, and that still rocked my core and scared the shit out of me when Toji pulled that trigger and shot Riko right through the head. That was the beginning of the downward spiral of Jujutsu Kaisen. The death that, for all intents and purposes, spring-loaded the entire plot of Jujutsu Kaisen and made everything that is happening today possible. Up next is Toji. This is the character that y'all are thinking of when you talk about aura. Toji, from the moment he appears on screen, strikes a level of intensity that some might consider impossible to replicate. He is good at one thing only, and that's killing fucking sorcerers. So what does Toji do for a living? He kills fucking sorcerers. The man was the first person to get one over and outsmart the Honored One, a character that he himself admits no one should be able to beat. And even at the end of everything, before Toji sells off his son, he goes, you know what? Let me change my mind. Gojo, you take care of my son. W, dad. And then when he comes back as a zombie, instead of killing his son, he commits seppuku. You can't tell me Toji isn't an S tier character on aura alone. Next up, we've got Ino. Shiesty sorcerer himself, as I mentioned before, was very much highly leveled up after his MVP results after the Shinjuku showdown. This bro went up against Sukuna multiple times, casted his strongest spell against Sukuna, and in the last second threw his fucking curse tool from Nanami at Sukuna, dunked him on the head, and distracted him long enough for Yuji to get another black flash on bro. Besides that, Ino is a semi-grade 1 sorcerer who refuses to become a grade 1 sorcerer without Nanami's approval. Of course, Nanami is dead now, so that's a little tough. Other than that, he's like your perfect little brother-esque character. Wants to be cool and tries so hard to be cool, but he just can't. I will be honest, I was never a big fan of Ino. I felt very similar to Ino, like I felt about Kusakabe. His personality just doesn't really hit for me. It doesn't really, I don't really relate to it. It's kind of like whatever for me. But his MVP actions in Shinjuku give me the right to put bro in B tier at the very least. We coming in hot for the NPC tier. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, blah 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 blah, like, what do you mean NPC? Wee Wee's got the soul swap. He's the only reason that they're cooking in Shinjuku Showdown. I don't care. I really do not. And Wee Wee is a Mei accessory at this point. Up next is Naobito. I'll put Naobito right next to Arame. Naobito is cool. Projection sorcery is a great and iconic curse technique that when it first came out was literally making steam come out of people's brains. It was so complicated at first. Naobito, despite being, you know, a prick, does have a real personality. Up next is fucking Ogami, who the only reason she doesn't get trash forgettable is because she brought back Toji. Ogami has done nothing but kidnap a bunch of kids and tell them she was their grandma, even though she's not. Human trafficker, necromancer, weirdo, NPC. Your boyfriend, your buddy over here, Awasaka, can go right in the NPC or tier list with you. Inverse curse technique, sure. Interesting curse technique. Character, no one cares about you, Awasaka. You're salty because Gojo fucked up your criminal career path of what, being a serial killer? Really, bro? Get a new, maybe people would like you and you wouldn't be such an antisocial POS if you got a different sense of style, bro. Shave that mustache. The mustache and beard combo, not fitting, bro. Mahoraga, while not really having much of a character, is an A tier, and let me explain to you why. Mahoraga is Smoke Demon incarnate. Mahoraga's personality is being a goddamn menace. When Mahoraga hits that smirk, you know some shit's about to go down. Megami summoning Mahoraga is an iconic moment, much like Toji, Aura incarnate. They have one of the coolest fights against Gojo. They have one of the coolest fights against Sukuna. They make the Shibuya incident iconic. Up next, we've got Nobara Kugasaki. Sits in B tier. I can't really give Nobara any higher place than that. Nobara's got a great personality. Her moment in the exchange event arc where she rejects needing to be beautiful, needing to be woman-like, and just wants to be herself and be strong is iconic. She does, however, immediately get that turnaround and fumble the bag against Haruta Shigemo, of all fucking people. Haruta is who you lose to. You have a chance to show up your game and show why you're a semi-grade 1 sorcerer and show why they brought you to Shibuya incident, and Haruta throws you off your game, girl? Come on. Kari tries to tell you not to go back into the Shibuya incident because you're gonna get cooked. And then what happens? You go back into the Shibuya incident and you get cooked by Mahito. Hairpin and the straw doll technique is a cool ability. Nobara as a character fits the trio of Yuji, Megami, Nobara very well. I think Nobara is a great character, but I can't rank her an A. I can't rank her an S. Her flashback and story as a whole does not hit for me. It feels like there's parts missing from it. She's not a fully fleshed out character, unfortunately. Up next, we've got Yuki Tsukumo. She's pretty top tier. Whether you feel that Yuki was wasted or you feel like Yuki could have done more, I mean, I definitely feel like she could have done more. Whether I feel like that's more fitting for like a spin-off or a side story than the actual main story itself. But the reason why I put Yuki Tsukumo at A tier is because Yuki Tsukumo, while not having much screen time, everything that she represents, her philosophies, her themes, what she stands for, hits so hard for me. Her entire philosophy of basically being willing to say the quiet part out loud in front of Geto, but also acknowledging that while the quiet part is a response, it's not the most ideal one. It's not the most moral high ground take. Geto goes, fuck it, let's just kill everyone, while Yuki goes, no, killing everyone is the easy way. Taking away everyone's cursed energy is a lot harder, but that creates a lot more happiness, which I think is very respectable. I like Yuki for that. I like that Yuki's able to ask the hard questions, but when given an answer to that question that she doesn't like, instead of just accepting it and seeing how way things are, she tries to change it. I think her fight against Kenjaku is great, especially meeting with Kenjaku in the Shibuya incident when they're literally poised to completely counter each other's philosophies entirely. I love it. Yeah, Yuki's the antithesis to what Kenjaku represents, which is really cool. While I think Yuki was always meant to perish under Kenjaku's reign, Gege really did cook a top level character here, left people wanting more. That's Yuki's only fatal flaw, was she left people wanting more. Also have another A tier character. Kenjaku is another A tier character for me. Kenjaku could have been S tier. At least as of right now, the way that Kenjaku's story has ended leaves a gaping hole in my heart, to be completely honest with you. Kenjaku, professional yapper himself, the sorcerer that survived thousands of years, prolonging his life by brain hopping body to body, taking down different curse techniques, fighting against the Six Eyes users and Tengen for as much as he possibly could, all in the name of straight up chaos and just creating the craziest thing that you possibly can just because you can. I think Kenjaku is an amazing final villain. I think Kenjaku, for all intents and purposes, makes a better final villain for Jujutsu Kaisen than Sukuna does, in my honest opinion, even though I know that's a pretty hot take. Just moves the plot along. He has such a manipulation and control over the narrative. He's always in the shadows. Everything that happens in the story revolves around him. He came this far and died to Takaba, and then Yuta sneak attacks him right before he accomplishes his goal, and then just gives it all to Sukuna and says, all right, I got it. I got us this far. It's okay though. Sukuna will do it. I'll never see what I created for 1,000 years, but it's okay. It just leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. If he had a better ending, if we saw more of Kenjaku's origins and upcoming story where he got this idea in his head, or saw him do evil deeds in the past, or got a fucking Heian era backstory, or saw more with Kenjaku and Tengen. So much was left vague with Kenjaku. There's so many times where Kenjaku just vague posts and alludes to knowledge instead of just giving it to us, and then now that Kenjaku's dead, we may never get that knowledge. Why did Kenjaku make Yuji? Why did we do all this stuff? It's just like, there's so many things left on the floor that I would have loved an answer for me. So if that's the case, I could only give Kenjaku an A for everything that he does. Up next, Hikari fucking Kinji. Put Hikari right next to Yuta, right next to Yuki. His entire idea of the fever, of having passion, of doing things that get him excited, and just loving thrill of fighting and sorcery, but most importantly, standing up for what he believes is right and being a man of his word. When Kashimo goes to fight Sukuna, Hikari steps in to fight Arame. Is Kashimo Hikari's best friend? No, but Hikari made a promise and he's got to stick to it. Hikari respects Yuta, for as hard-headed as Hikari is, he's also very open-minded. Hikari's domain expansion fits his personality perfectly. Hikari has one of the greatest fights of all time with Kashimo, while also having one of the longest fights of all nothing against Arame. We haven't seen him in 20 chapters because he just keeps getting cut back to where him and Arame are fighting. Up next is Kirara. I love Kirara as a character. I think they are awesome. I'm going to give Kirara a B tier. I love Kirara's curse technique, one of the most interesting curse techniques of all time that Gege ever created. I love Kirara's fight with Megami. I think it's a really good fight for Megami in all intents and purposes. I think it really shows how far that Megami has come, that not only is he able to stomp a third year in Kyoto school, which again is the dog water school, but he's also able to beat a third year from his own school, and a third year with one of the most convoluted and most ridiculous curse techniques of all time. The role that they play, I think Kirara does a great job as head of the security of the Fight Club. Up next is Naoya Zenin. S tier character for sure. Naoya is a piece of shit. Fuck Naoya. Fuck the misogyny missile and everything that he stands for. But God, don't you just love to hate this man. Gege popped off when he was writing Naoya. Gege really made one of the most detestable POSs, but Naoya's integration into Maki's story, his integration as pretty much the representation of all of the evil that resides in the Zenin clan. He hits so many notes way more than Naobito ever could. His fight against Choso, his introduction as wanting to be the head of the Zenin clan and going against everyone and willing to go underhanded and go against his even own clan members just to become head because he feels he deserves it, his entitlement, his massive cockiness, and just disgustingness. A woman needs to stay 3 steps behind a man. Crazy fucking dialogue. His fight against Maki during Perfect Preparation is an awesome fight, only for that to be all followed up by him becoming a vengeful spirit as the pure representation of the evil of the Zenin clan and their disgusting views. And then he grows even more and more as an evil POS in that moment, fighting against Maki, Kamo Noritoshi, and Mayo and Daido. Awesome domain expansion. When I think of a character that just did it for me more in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's Naoya. Naoya is completely fleshed out. That being said, I think Maki can go right next to Naoya. And the reason why I give Maki an S is because I think the entire story beat of Maki, Naoya, and everything like that are just Gege's peak fiction, in my honest opinion. I think Perfect Preparation, Maki's dismantling of the Zenin clan, is something that was foreshadowed way back early in the exchange event. I think Maki kills it in the exchange event of becoming a very likable character. I think the foreshadowing is set up perfectly in Shibuya Incident when she sees Toji. And then I think since becoming Perfect Preparation Maki, I think Maki has only just jumped up in scale. I love Maki. Ogi Zenin, trash. An awful character. Not only is he an L dad, he blames his children for not becoming the head of the Zenin clan. Bro, take your own accountability. If you really were Himothy, they couldn't use your kids against you. You got diced up by Maki in no time after talking your top game. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Next is fucking Tengen. I mean, is Tengen really more than an NPC? One of the most important characters of the entire series? NPC status? Tengen has done nothing most of the entire story besides be very vague, be wrong about where Angel was, didn't help out much at all in the Yuki and Choso versus Kenjaku fight, didn't realize that Kenjaku would have an open barrier and was unable to dispel the open barrier. Tengen sucks. Higuruma Hiromi, S tier character, one of the greatest characters that Gege has ever created of all time. My man has a peak backstory of just wanting to be the one lawyer that could do something against Japan's 99% conviction rate. Higuruma's backstory is so relatable, so believable. The bro snapped on one of the most reasonable things that I could have ever, like, I can't even blame Higuruma for snapping like he did. He said, fuck you guys, this system is corrupt and I'm changing it right now, and then killed a bunch of people. And then now he's making up for it by being a good guy, helping us out as an ally, and fighting against Sukuna, the king of fucking curses. And in only being a sorcerer for a month, he's already, 1, done more than Kamo Noritoshi has done in the entire series. 2, learned domain amplification and reverse curse technique all in 1 day to fight against the king of curses as equally as he possibly could have. His story is real. His fight against Yuji is awesome. His domain expansion is perfect for him. His mental anguish and the fact that Yuji is the one that saves him from the light. Up next, we've got Itadori fucking Yuji. I'm gonna put him right next to Choso. Yuji is an amazing main character. I can't stress that enough. There's something about Gege Akutami and his cycle of suffering that he himself has even admitted to foregoing training arcs, for making their character lose enough times to where the audience goes, this guy can't fucking lose anymore, he needs to fucking turn up. And I do not care what anyone says. That is wholeheartedly what Gege is hitting the notes every time. Yuji is a hardcore main character. He does what he needs to do, fights against impossible odds all of the time, and despite the fact that he may always need help we have to remember that he's only been a sorcerer for a couple months, not even a full year, and yet he's already beating enemies like Hanami, Mahito with his brother Todo, fighting with people like Yuta, fighting with people like Higuruma, and in the Shinjuku Shodown, after all of his training, he's truly become the master of the Black Sparks. Yuji is an awesome main character. His growth since the beginning, Shibuya incident, the Malevolent Shrine that killed everyone, and his throwing up afterwards, and then fighting Mahito afterwards, and coming to his senses from Todo, but some of my most favorite moments of the entire series. So I genuinely really like the development that Yuji's gotten over time. I don't think he's an S tier character though. He doesn't quite have the sauce that the S tier characters have, right? Mahito is a much better character than Yuji is, even though Yuji and Mahito are two sides of the same coin. All the characters that Yuji kind of interlocks with and mixes with end up being better than him, just because Yuji's arc isn't complete. It's possible by the end of the series, Yuji will be S tier, and I have full faith in that. High A tier. Reggie Star is gonna be another B tier character for me. Whatever you want to say about Reggie, I think Reggie was a great character for Megami to fight with. I think Reggie's curse technique is a very smart and very creative curse technique. Even up against Megami's domain expansion, Reggie fought tooth and nail to win. At the end of the day, was outbested in sorcery as a whole, in deceit and tricks. Hazanoki Iori, I think he's another great villain in the Culling game. I think he sits right next to Reggie in B tier. Has a fun personality, a cool design. His curse technique is interesting and unique. He can use reverse curse technique on a level unlike any I've seen before. And he's one of the only characters that Gege, I guess, deemed important enough to have die on screen. I like Hazanoki. I think he's cool. You have Angel. Trash. Forgettable. Angel is garbage. Angel is a character that had so much hype, so much potential to be super cool, and then literally dropped all of that on the floor and spilled it like fucking aged old milk. Angel's only personality trait being that they liked Megami, potentially having the power to end it all and save all of our skins and kill Sukuna, fumbles the ball. Next on the list, we've got Charles fucking Bernard. You go in C tier, Charles, because he has a fun fight with Hikari, and the fact that he's a brand new fresh spanking sorcerer and is able to swing with Hikari is crazy. His introduction as a manga artist, literally Gege self-insert with the future sight curse technique. We've got Panda, who I'll probably put in B tier. Panda is a really big gimmick character, a big gag character. The idea that there's a talking, walking panda is just funny, and the fact that no one ever explains it ever when given the chance is also a funny joke. Panda's fight against Mekamaru in the exchange event is a great fight. I think Panda, as opposed to a character like Inumaki, fits very well with the other characters in the protagonist group. Probably because he's able to talk and not just talk in rice ball ingredients. So Panda has a lot of funny moments with the cast. I also think that, as many of you are saying, his sister is a fraud. I think the ending chapter that we got of Panda and his siblings was great storytelling. Another Gege one-shot banger that I think is enough for me to push Panda into the B tier. Even Panda's cry scene, where Panda has to deal with Yaga's death, and Panda is still smart enough and reasonable enough to realize that Gaku Kanji, even though he's the one that has blood on his hands, it's really the higher ups that caused Yaga's death, not Gaku Kanji, which is an admirable take on the situation, especially when it's your dad, your own dad, that died. Kashimo, S tier. Kashimo has him energy, and there's nothing more that needs to be said about it. Kashimo as a character is basically Maharaga, but with a personality. Nothing but grit and fucking strength, power. The symbolism of a high-level, no-nonsense sorcerer. Not only had one of the greatest fights of the entire series against Hikari, after dying to Sukuna and fulfilling his purpose as the character that bit off more than he could chew, he serves his purpose greatly. The strongest character from the Edo period that was way too greedy and could have had a great fight with Ishigori Ryu, and instead forsake their entire life, hop timelines. Kashimo could fight Sukuna and die like a man. I would definitely put Takaba like low of A. I love Takaba. I don't care what anyone says. Takaba is a goat. I've always thought Takaba was a goat. I love the gag character idea. Takaba's got one of his nuts hanging out at all times, which is literally insane. Takaba canonically fought the main villain Kenjaku and won, which is wild. His curse technique is literally one of the strongest things in the entire world. The added backstory that we got in his fight with Kenjaku is what levels him up to A tier. I probably would have put him in B tier, but that added backstory of him never being able to find a partner and him always overcompensating for comedy because of that, and then finally meeting a partner in Kenjaku, and then the entire fight revolving around them having to outsmart one another in the comedic world. Loved it. I thought it was a great idea, and while again a lot of the jokes might have been lost in translation, I loved the idea and I loved the creativity that Gege put into Takaba. That entire fight was bonkers. Takaba is an iconic character. Ishigori is a fun character. I think he fits very well in Sendai Colony as a fighter against Yuta. Granite Blast is insane. I think the Pompadour looks stupid, and I think Ishigori with his hair down right when he dies to Yuta or loses to Yuta, I think is peak Ishigori. That's what Ishigori's character design should have been, because the Pompadour just ain't it, I'll be honest with you, but I digress. He bit off way more than he could chew against Sukuna, which is sad because I would have loved to have seen him as like an ally. He definitely deserves to be sitting around with like Orame and Naobito as like decent characters for sure. Oro probably goes right next to him. Oro, same thing as Ishigori, a great villain and a great enemy for Yuta to face in Sendai Colony. Sky manipulation is an awesome curse technique. The whole entire assassin aspect where she's a member of the sun, moon, and stars, and she hates the Fujiwara, so that gives her a grudge against Yuta just when she meets him. She's a super cool character. I would have liked to have seen her, of all people, be an ally for us in the protagonist crew against the Sukuna King of Curses fight. Specifically because she hasn't shown up since Sendai Colony. We don't know where she is. She felt Sukuna's presence and then Ishigori died. Did she die after Ishigori? Did Kenjaku kill her in the hunt? We don't know what happened with Yoro. So Yorozu. I really like Yorozu, despite all of the hate that Yorozu gets for stealing Sumiki's character, taking all character development and personality away from Sumiki. I love Yorozu for the sheer fact that she perfectly encapsulates everything that the Heian era is supposed to be. She's a character who very much selfishly, psychopathically, and unapologetically does what she wants and goes after what she wants without caring what anybody thinks about her. She thinks Sukuna's hot. She wants to marry Sukuna, so fuck it. She's gonna go out there and get Sukuna no matter what. Whether she has to burn down villages, kill other people to do it, destroy entire cities, or bring down the entire world. Up next, we've got Mr. Megami. I'll put you right next to your boy, Yuji. Megami, I think, is a great, fun character. I loved watching him grow and develop throughout the series. I loved seeing all of his different fights. I loved seeing his curse technique with the 10 shadows slowly get better over time as he learned more and more different ways to use it, especially when we get to things like the Underground Fight Club, when he's like ducking in and out of people's shadows. The 10 shadows is an awesome curse technique. Maharaga, Megami summoning Maharaga, is an iconic meme. I think for what we got of Megami, Megami was a great character, a great Derteragonist. The last two characters of the tier list. Where do I think Gojo ranks? I think Gojo should go right next to Geto in A tier. Why do I think Gojo isn't an S? He doesn't move me, honestly, to be fair. He doesn't move me. Gojo is your classic overpowered character. He's the honored one. He's the strongest sorcerer in current day. He's funny. He's a big goofball. But other than that, I think Gojo fits the bill of being the overpowered character well. The overpowered character isn't my favorite trope. I prefer characters that have more aura, that earn their aura, as opposed to characters like Gojo that are blessed with the best and are just flaunting it in everybody's faces. His Honored One awakening is great. Hidden Inventory arc is one of the greatest small knit stories in the series. The narrative that's being brought up now of Gojo being a weapon for Jujutsu Society is great. I think Gege's really cooking with that idea. Gojo being a brat and being willing to kill all of the Time Star cult members after Rico dies, top tier moment. He's a great character. He's an awesome character. I don't think he hits the writing highs of Mahito, Higuruma, Nanami, Naoya. You know what I mean? He just doesn't. Yeah, Sukuna right around here, probably going right next to Yuji, honestly. Sukuna and Gojo are super fun characters. They're very fun to see on screen. They're super fun to see people beat up. They have nothing but pure, you know, aura. Their fights, they're fun to watch to kill people. That's it. Like, why do I think Mahito's an S tier character, but Sukuna's an A tier character? Mahito's writing as a villain, the way that Mahito affects Yuji, the things that Mahito does to Yuji, the awful things that Mahito does to the people around him. Mahito is peak villain writing. Sukuna does not propel the plot forward. You know who propels the plot forward? Kenjaku propels the plot forward. Naoya propels the plot forward. Higuruma, Mahito propel the plot forward. The things that these characters do change the story for the good or the better or the worse. Even the things that these characters do leave lasting impact. Sure, Sukuna has a crazy moment against Jogo. He has a crazy moment against Maharaga. Crazy moment against Fingerbearer. He's been fighting everybody for the last 30 fucking chapters. He has one of the greatest fights of all time against Gojo. But that's it. People don't like Sukuna because, oh my god, the way that Gege wrote Sukuna is so beautiful. Sukuna is just such an amazing character. I could write for hours about Sukuna's and analyze Sukuna's personality. You can't do that. You can yap about how strong Sukuna is and how legendary he's supposed to be and the kind of things he's supposed to have done in the Heian era. But when it comes to who is Sukuna, that essay gets a lot shorter. Same with Gojo. Gojo is a little bit more. I won't give him that same thing. I think Gojo could put a couple more paragraphs to page, but that's because he got hidden inventory. Gojo got a lot more development. We saw Gojo who he was before he was at his peak. We've never seen Sukuna except in his peak. So we can't really relate to him because Sukuna is just there. I love Sukuna. I would not put him on the same level as like Mahito, Higuruma, Nanami, Naoya, some of the greatest characters that he's ever written. Yeah, this was a crazy one, guys. This was a crazy one. The tier list is indeed complete.